Um, so I am rebellious by nature. I like to go. I don't know why Randy just amen that. I felt like Randy just amen. I heard him. I don't know why that, but we'll talk later. I'm just joking. And so here's the deal. I am very big on that. I'm very big on being rebellious a little bit, just kind of going against the grain. If you've not noticed me as a pastor, I like to go against the grain sometimes. And I'm notorious for if I'm not allowed to do it, or if I'm not allowed to go in a place like a do not enter sign, I am pretty notorious for trying to go into that do not enter sign. If there is a wet paint sign on the wall, I can assure you I'm touching the wall. I promise it's just a little thing. If we go to the doctor's offices, I I'm just going to admit it. I will tell you right now, and when I'm waiting for the doctor in the office, I will look through the drawers. I do. I just want to look to see what they got. I may or may not have taken a Band-Aid here and there, but that's kind of what it is. All right? And some of you are laughing. You're like, I have a whole stock of Band-Aids that I stole from my doctor. I didn't steal it. I actually told the doctor. Anyway, whatever. It's just one of those things where it's no matter how much you see the do not sign, a lot of times we try to go in through that. We'll take that route. We'll go that direction. And we see that really in the life of Samson. There's a lot of do nots in Samson's life. Like he lived a great life. And if you don't know the story of Samson, you can go in and take a look at Scripture. We're going to talk about Samson today, not his entire life, but we're going to talk about the moment that he was with Delilah. And you guys know that story. But before that, he did have some great victories, killing 1,000 Philistines with the jaw of a donkey and seeing all these different things that happened within his life. And he had a birthright with his hair and the strength that he had. And so these are just bullet points of what happened within Samson's life. But there was a destiny that he had. There was a direction that he was supposed to go. But there were some moments, and we'll talk about them today, that really stopped him and prevented him from getting to where he needed to be the right way. So I want to talk about the 4 don'ts of destiny. If we're going to talk about vision, I want to talk the 4 don'ts of destiny. The 4 don'ts of destiny. Chapter 16, verse 1 in Judges, here's what it says. One day Samson went to the Philistine town of Gaza and spent the night with a prostitute. Word soon spread that Samson was there. So the men of Gaza gathered together and waited all night at the town gates, and they kept quiet during the night, saying to themselves, when the light of the morning comes, we are going to kill him. So the enemy's already plotting, right? The enemy's already plotting, of course. And Samson stayed in bed only until midnight. Then he got up, took hold of the doors of the town gate, including the 2 posts, and lifted them up, bar and all. He put them on his shoulders and carried them all the way to the top of the hill across from Hebron. Listen to that. One day Samson went and spent the night with a prostitute. Samson was obviously in sin here. He's walking. He has his birthright. The call of God is on his life. The purpose of God is on his life. But here he is blatantly going out and yielding to sin. And there are some people in here, you yield to sin while you're still trying to say yes to God. You're still falling into the traps and falling into the situations that you do. And it says he got up and took hold of the doors of the town gate. Think about that. This is his strength. Remember that. He is supernaturally strong. And I always wondered why here's Samson, supernaturally strong, and still in sin. The Lord still gave him his strength. Why is that? Sometimes I wonder that. I wonder, why is it that the Lord why wouldn't the Lord take the strength away in the middle of his sin? Because his purpose was greater than even his sin. And in you, your purpose is bigger than you. But hear what I'm saying, church. Don't mistake your purpose for permission. Hear me. Don't mistake your purpose for permission. What I'm saying is there are some of you in here, you think because you keep falling to the sin and you haven't seen a consequence, you keep falling to your struggle, you haven't seen a consequence, you keep falling to the same thing over and over and over and over and over again, and you haven't necessarily seen the consequence maybe your mind has thought you would see, like, oh, I'm going to lose this, I'm going to lose this, I'm going to lose my marriage, I'm going to lose my boyfriend, girlfriend, I'm going to do this. Maybe because you haven't seen that extravagant, that massive consequence that you have in your mind, maybe you think it's permission to continue sinning, to continue going. I'm just going to keep going back to this. I'm going to keep going back to this struggle. I'm going to keep going back to this issue. And you'll see in the life of Samson, and you'll see the direction that he's walking, that I believe this is what happened with Samson. I believe that he was mistaking it. He said, I have permission. He was just doing it, going ahead and do it because the strength has not left him. Imagine what could have happened. Imagine what could have happened if both lined up. Imagine if he thought to himself, I'm not going to step into this. I'm not going to go sleep with Delilah. I'm not going to go spend the night with Delilah. I'm not going to step into that sin. Don't mistake purpose for permission. Don't give your heart for hurt. Listen, sometime later, Samson fell in love with a woman named Delilah who lived in the valley of Sorek. The rulers of the Philistines went to her and said, entice Samson to tell you what makes him so strong and how he can be overpowered and tied up so securely. Then each of you will give 1,100 pieces of silver. Each of us will give you 1,100 pieces of silver. He loved a woman whose name was Delilah. Samson fell in love again and fell for a woman completely wrong for him. This is another example of the pain and the ruin that came into Samson's life because he did not, hear me, he did not guard his heart. We don't talk about that enough in the church. We don't talk about guarding your heart. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that. I want to touch on that just for a moment. Number one, the reason you guard your heart is because of the value of your heart. Because of the value of your heart. When we throw away trash, when you throw away trash, you put it to the side of the road, and there's no guarding of any kind of trash. You just leave it there and let people take whatever they want to take, let people do whatever they want to do. As a matter of fact, there are times where I know it's trash, and I'll throw it out, and somebody will just grab it. It could be a TV. It looks like it's worth a lot, but I consider it trash. And I just leave it there for whoever wants to take it. There's no guarding of it. And some of you are treating your heart like trash, like it's worthless. But the Bible says, above all else, guard your heart. Above all else. That's a priority because your heart is the source of everything you do. As you know, I love watching National Geographic. And in those shows, I watch where it talks about the different streams and it talks about the wellspring, because the Bible talks about how your heart is the wellspring of life. And if you plug up a spring, you stop the flow of water. If you poison the water, the flow becomes toxic. In either situation, you threaten it. You threaten your life. And this is what's happening with an unhealthy heart, with somebody who's not guarding their heart, who lets other people trash their hearts, friends and family and ministry even, and careers and your legacy. It all becomes toxic and it all becomes poison when you're not guarding what's in your heart, when you're not guarding what's in this. And the enemy will continue to attack it. He'll continually attack your heart because he understands exactly what's going on. That's why you see within your relationships, within your family, within your job, wherever it might be, the enemy is continually attacking your heart because he knows that if he can get to your heart, he can get to your family, he can get to everything else. Why do you think people are walking out of churches? Why do you think that people are falling the way they are? He's getting to their heart and people are running to this. When Solomon says guard your heart, he's saying, listen, it's a combat. You gotta be careful of what you're letting in. You got to be careful of the steps you're taking. You got to be careful of the directions you're going. You got to be careful. And so he's falling in love with Delilah, but clearly she's not in love with him. He's looking for love, she's looking for lust. The lust of money, the lust of whatever it might be. And some of you are giving, you're pouring your heart out. You're pouring your heart out to people. You're pouring your heart out and trying to cast your pearls before swine. Going after relationships. Going after things that are temporarily satisfying you. Giving your heart to it. Searching and searching for something to fill a void. Something to fill something in your heart. The enemy is continually coming after you. Continually chasing after you. Guard your heart. Don't give your heart for hurt. Don't sabotage your destiny because you succumb to familiarity. So Delilah said to Samson, we're going to go through a little bit here. Please tell me what makes you so strong and what it would take to tie you up securely. Samson replied, if I were tied up with 7 new bowstrings. Hear what he said. He's lying, right? He's not telling her the truth of what's happening. If I were to tie you up with 7 new bowstrings that have not yet been dried, I would become as weak as anyone else. So the Philistine rulers brought Delilah 7 new bowstrings, and she tied Samson up with them. She had them hidden. She had hidden some men in the one corner of the inner rooms of her house, and she cried out, Samson, the Philistines have come to capture you. But Samson snapped the bowstrings as a piece of string snaps with it burned by a fire. So the secret of his strength was not discovered. So he told her one lie. One lie, that's number one. Afterward, Delilah said to him, now he really in that moment, he should have been like, whoa, what? Like you would think in his brain, in any human's brain, you would think, wait a second, this person just tried to kill me with what I said was my weakness. But there she is, number one. Here's number two. Afterward, Delilah said to him, you've been making fun of me and telling me lies. Now, please tell me how you can be tied up securely. Samson replied, if I were tied up with the brand new ropes that had never been used, I would become as weak as anyone else. So Delilah took new ropes and tied him up with them. The men were hiding in the inner room, as before. And again, Delilah cried out, Samson, the Philistines have come to capture you. But again, Samson snapped the ropes from his arms as if they were thread. That's number two. He still doesn't get it. Then Delilah said, you've been making fun of me and telling me lies. Now tell me how you can't be tied up securely. At this point, she'd be out. I'd block her on Facebook. I'd delete her. I would unfollow her. I would post TikToks about her. Like it would just be that way. And Delilah said, you've been making fun of me and telling me lies. Now tell me, how can you be tied up securely? Samson replied, if you were to weave the 7 braids of my hair into the fabric of your loom and tighten it with the loom shuttle, I would become as weak as anyone else. So while he slept, Delilah wove the 7 braids of his hair into fabric. Then she tightened it with the loom shuttle. Again, she cried out, Samson, the Philistines have come to capture you. And Samson woke up, pulled back the loom shuttle, and yanked his hair away from the loom and the fabric. And Delilah pouted, how can you tell me you love me? Oh, boy. How can you tell me I love you when you don't share your secrets with me? You've made fun of me 3 times now, and you still haven't told me what makes you so strong. What makes you so strong? Here's what that sounds like. First of all, it sounds like Proverbs where it says a dog returns to its vomit, a fool repeats his foolishness. But this also sounds like unhealthy relationships, destructive habits, and negative thought patterns. That's what it sounds like. That's what it sounds like in your life. Because you make fun of Samson. We make fun of Samson. I made fun of Samson. I'm looking at him. I'm like, you're an idiot. Like, right? Look, because we read it, and we're like, you are so not intelligent, Samson. You are so not intelligent, but here it is. Unhealthy relationships. Here's what a lot of your weaknesses are. Let me point out some weaknesses maybe in your own personal life that you like to keep running back to. Those unhealthy relationships. You return to toxic or abusive relationships, even though you recognize their harm, with attachment issues, low self-esteem, a fear of loneliness, all these things you start running back to. But yet you judge Samson for running back to it, but some of you are running back to unhealthy relationships. Some of you are running back to destructive habits, breaking free from substance abuse, pornography, addictive behaviors. This cycle of dependency and relief, temporary relief, contributes to the recurrence of these habits, and you want to run back to it. Oh, but Samson's an idiot. Samson isn't intelligent, but yet you keep running back to the same exact things every single day of your life that are making you struggle. But you run back to it. But Samson's dumb. Negative thought patterns, self-doubt, destructive talk can be ingrained over time. Even when there's a positive change that can come or that should come, you find it difficult to break from pessimistic thinking. You find it difficult to break from the thoughts of rejection. You find it difficult to break from some of these mental habits that you keep running to and keep going to. Oh, but Pastor Casey, you don't understand what my life was. You don't understand how I've gone through this. We make fun of Samson, but we've yet to look at ourselves. The very things that we continue to run to. Breaking free from these often requires a self-awareness. She kept saying, please tell me what makes you so strong and what would it take to tie up. He knew where his strength was. It's not, and here's what's funny. We always see the pictures of Samson. Have you ever seen the pictures of Samson as this like super like rock solid, like giant, massive? If he looked a certain way, she probably wouldn't ask him what his strength was. Hear what I'm saying? She wouldn't have asked him. If he looked like what the pictures look like, I'm not going to go to certain people in our church that are just rock solid, like, you know what I'm saying? And I'm not going to be like, well, what's your strength? It's obvious what your strength is. You look like you could break right now, right? That I understand that, right? But then, so the reason they're asking him is because he probably more than likely was frail, was small. And so she's looking and she's asking him these questions. What would it take to tie you up so securely? She knew that he could be bound with something. She knew, hear what I'm saying, she knew what his weakness was. You know, the enemy knows your weakness. The enemy knows your weaknesses. So those will always be presented to you. So if it's a relationship, guess what's going to be presented? If you keep running to relationships, to toxic relationships, not necessarily a certain person, but just a certain type of person, yeah? You ever met somebody that they're like, yeah, I finally broke up with them. And then end up going out with a twin brother that's just like him, right? You know what I'm saying? It's like the same thing. You're like, oh yeah, I can handle that. I can do this. And so the enemy understands where to get you and knows how to tempt you and knows where to make you struggle, knows the buttons to push. The toxic relationship buttons, the rejection buttons, the hate buttons, the anger buttons, the bitter buttons. You see what I'm saying? So he likes to kind of go after that. And the fact that he didn't tell her the truth proved that he knew that she was her dangerous intention. Think about that. He knew the intentions, but still went back to it. You know what makes you fall, but still go back to it. You know the people that make you struggle, but you still go back to them. You know the people that bring you down, but you still run to them. You know the relationships that you have that make you weak, and you still run to it. You know the thought patterns that you carry that make you less of a Christian, less of a man, less of a woman, whatever it might be, and you still go running back to it. You go back to these old patterns. Old patterns. Old patterns. And the reason why is because of fear and familiarity. It's not to say that you're a horrible person because you do this, but it's because you become familiar. Have you ever heard of the saying, familiarity breeds contempt? You become familiar with what's making, and it's the easy way out. And so some of you are finding an easy way out, an easy way to deal. Well, my mind is this way, and this is just who I am. This is just the way that I am. If we're talking relationships, this is just my type. This is just what I like to do. This is what makes me comfortable. This is, and so you give excuses. You give excuses for these things instead of breaking loose from them and stopping them and running from them. That's the more difficult thing. So we need people in this church, hear what I'm saying? We need people in this church to make the sacrifice of change. So if it's negative thought patterns you have, don't give me this, that is just who I am. Don't tell me that. Change your mindset. Change your thought processes. If you keep running back to the same type of people that are ruining you spiritually, just cut them out of your life. Get rid of them. It is not unchristian to get rid of people that are making you less Christian. You get rid of them and stop them. If you have to delete them, delete them. If you have to block them, block them. It's okay. I don't think the Lord's saying, He's not. Because his whole idea, the Lord's whole, you want to get closer to him. Jesus, I want to get closer to you. I want to live a better life. I want to do the right things. I want to take the right steps. I want to do it, so I need to get rid of it. There's nothing worse than living in sin or running back to the wrong person or doing the wrong things and all those. There's nothing worse than sitting in the presence of God because the conviction is all over you. It's so good, though, when you say, you know what, I made this step and I cut this out. I cut this person out. I cut this thought process out. I want you to think about that for a moment. Where are your thought processes? I'm on this for a while because this was really the heavy downturn of Samson. This is really like, you start to see it come out, just his patterns. And so you see this within him, within his life. Is it constantly this thought pattern of, everything's going to be horrible. Life is going to suck for the rest of everything. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's going to be worse than ever. Is it, man, she is just incredible. Yes, I know but she is just so, or he is just, or you know what, the money is just so good. The money's just so good, I got to keep going. Think about your thought processes and where you are. I understand that it's familiar and it's easy to run back to it, but they sabotage you. They sabotage you. And the last one is this. Don't be mastered by the master of manipulation. Don't be mastered by the master of manipulation. This is it. She tormented him with her nagging day after day until he was sick to death of it. Hear that. Mind you, this happened to Samson before with his wife. She nagged him so much, right? And so finally, like this woman nagged him. Finally, Samson shared his secret with her. Finally got fed up. My hair has never been cut. I was dedicated to God as a Nazirite from birth. If my head were shaved, my strength would leave me, and I would become as weak as anyone else. And Delilah realized he had finally told her the truth. He had finally given up. He had finally succumbed to it. He was finally mastered by the manipulation. So she told the Philistine rulers, come back one more time. He finally told me a secret. So the rulers returned with the money in their hands. Delilah lulled Samson to sleep with her head on the lap. And then she called in a man to shave off the 7 locks of his hair. In this way, she began to bring him down, and his strength left him. And she cried out, Samson, the Philistines have come to capture you. When he woke, he thought, I will do as before and shake myself free. But he didn't realize the Lord had left him. And in that moment, he was shackled. Whew. Worship team, you can make your way up. In Judges 14, Samson gave in to the nagging of his wife, and you'll if you want to go back there, you can read that. But what a sad scene. What a sad scene for Samson. He thought that he could overcome. He thought that he could do it again. That he could run back and do the same thing over and over and over and over again. And finally, it broke. She began to torment him. And so I need you to hear this lesson. It is every day, the enemy will torment you, will nag you, will manipulate you, will try every single day. He will try to come after you. I know that because it happens to me every single day. There's something that he hits me with. There's something that happens. There's something that I hear. There's something that bothers me. There's something that I'm dealing, whatever it might be. And all throughout Scripture you see it. Deception and lies in Genesis, where the serpent identified as Satan. You know that. Deceived Eve. Twisting of God's word. That's in Matthew 4, 1 through 11, the temptation of Jesus in the wilderness. Satan twisted his words. Manipulation. Accusation and temptation. And Job, you see that. Satan accused Job of only being righteous because of God's protection and blessings. In 2 Corinthians 4:4, blinding minds. The devil is told he's described as blinding the minds of unbelievers, preventing them from seeing the light. In 2 Thessalonians 2:9, false signs and wonders. In James 3:16, division and strife. So I need you to hear, every day something's coming at you. Every day the devil's trying to divide. Every day the devil's trying to make you bitter. Every day the devil's trying to make you angry. Every day the devil's trying to make you be upset about what's happening in your home. Every day there's going to be a toxic person that might come at you. I don't know what it is that the enemy's coming at you with. I do know that it's an everyday thing. So today there needs to be a shift in your mentality and your thought process, because you don't want to fall into these four don'ts. Don't think because you have not seen a massive consequence to the sin that you're falling into, it doesn't mean that that is permission for you to keep sinning. Just because God has a higher purpose for a certain point. It's like my kids. Like, I will tell them, hey, if they don't have their phone, if I say, I am taking your phone because you're in trouble, but yet we leave out of the house or we want to contact them, here's your phone for a moment. This does not mean you're allowed to have your phone, but there's a greater purpose in you having your phone. Don't mistake it. Don't think you're going to keep it. You see what I'm saying? And some of you are acting that way. You're treating sin that way. Don't do it. Don't give your heart over for hurt. Don't guard it. Protect your heart. Protect your heart. Don't fall for it. Don't keep going back to your vomit, to the things that you've given up or you say you want to give up. And don't be mastered by the manipulation. It's every day. Won't you stand to your feet?